What's up, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with Commanders. I'm your host, Mason Kinahan, and today I'm bringing on William Herman to discuss the Ravens versus Commanders game because it just wrapped up like 30 minutes ago. So, William, how are you doing today? Your Ravens got a victory.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me. The Ravens, picked up a good win today, 4-2. That's 4 in a row. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big win for Baltimore. I know we kind of talked about it the entire week between our two teams. It was the game of the week, biggest game for I think on the entire slate. I want to say the entire for the entire week. So Baltimore got the victory, 30-23 over Washington. We'll start with our first. We'll start with our first reactions. William, just first takeaway, or what's your biggest takeaway from the game today?
Yeah, my first takeaway mainly was that I was just so, as I mentioned on Twitter, I was so impressed with Jaden Daniels in his ability, really, because I feel like aside from Terry, he just does a great job not taking a lot of sacks. And like I said, I hadn't seen it firsthand playing against my team, so it was good to see him. And I think the Commanders are, a happy team. I think he's definitely their quarterback of the future, and he showed it today.
Yeah, I was also pleasantly surprised by Jaden and what he did. Again, it was a loss for Washington. The Commanders are now 4-2, but I'm not like disappointed. I mean, I'm disappointed because it's a loss, of course, but it could have been so much worse.
Right.
The team could have gotten blown out and lost 30-3, right? And that's where we really are in some trouble.
100%.
Yeah, but like 23 points against very good run defense that matched up very well against Washington's offense. And then holding, this is crazy, holding to Derrick Henry and the Baltimore rushing offense to less than 200 yards was something that I'm proud of because they put up 176, but at the end of the day, like that's still 40 below their average or something like that. Yes, something like that. I think it's like just over 200.
Yeah, I believe so. Honestly, until he started to break off some ones in the fourth quarter, the Commanders handled them pretty well throughout the game.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with that too because this run defense has been horrific. I mean, we were letting up 15-plus yard runs for Chase Brown and Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. So holding Derrick Henry to 132 on 24 carries is something this Washington team should be proud of. But let's dive more into this Washington offense against this Baltimore defense, how these two matched up. Overall, Jane on the day, 24 of 35, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns. Took 3 sacks with a passer rating of 110.3. On the ground, Washington ran for only 52 yards. What was something that you think limited let me put this like this. How did you think Baltimore's run defense were able to stop Washington's rushing attack, which ranked number 2, I believe, in the league?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is not as much like X's and O's and scheme. I think the Ravens just happen to have better players than the Commanders have gone up against, just in the interior, especially like the Bengals. I know one of the worst pass rushers in the NFL throughout the whole line, and then also the Cardinals have been 2 of the worst. So I think finally going up against maybe not the best one, but one of the better ones in the league as far as players go, like Justin Madubuike was good, Dafe Owe was good, Michael Pierce was good. So I think it was a lot. Travis Jones has really emerged as a good player. So I think a lot of it is just not used to a lot of more capable players they've gone up against. But yeah, I would say, I think also the loss of Brian Robinson obviously hurts as well. But I've been impressed with the third back too. He's very good in pass pro. Yes, that's his name. He's been impressive.
Yeah, that was the big storyline coming in, was the status of Brian Robinson when I recorded the pregame pod last Friday. It sounded like it was going to be a game-time decision. Saturday night, gets announced that he's out for this game. And in replace, of course, Austin Eckler, Jerry McNichols, Chris Rodriguez got called up from the practice squad. Rodriguez did not get any carries. I'm not sure if he ever touched the field in this one. But between Eckler and McNichols, they averaged about 3 yards, a little bit over 3 yards per carry between the two. So it wasn't great from this rushing attack for Washington. You mentioned a guy like Travis Jones. I felt like that guy was everywhere. Like Washington could not run up the middle. Maybe there was 1 or 2 times they picked up 6+, but beyond that, Washington could not run up the middle. You had Jane on his RPOs and his read options. he was even struggling to read defenders. You mentioned that Baltimore is just more talented at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
There's more talent on that defense than Washington has on their offense. The scheme that Cliff Kingsbury has can only take you so far. You need to have the guys there. And I think just on both sides of the ball, we'll get more into the defense later, but both sides of the ball for Washington, you could really tell the difference between some of the guys that Adam Peters brought in and some of the guys that Ron Rivera brought in. Because the guys that Ron Rivera brought in did not play well today. They did not. I mean, one guy I'll mention.
Or some of them didn't even play.
Some of them didn't even play. Guys like Emmanuel Forbes and Jamin Davis, both of them were inactive for Washington. So all 4 draft picks, all 4 first-round picks that Ron Rivera drafted in his time in Washington didn't even touch the field today for the Commanders. One of them touched the field for the Saints, and one of them touched the field for the Eagles. And the other 2 didn't even suit up for today's game. So, you could really tell the difference between the Rivera guys and the Peters guys. A guy I mentioned also is Andrew Wiley. Seemed to have a little bit of a struggle in this one. He's been kind of up and down so far this season. There have been games that have been good, games that have not been good. But overall, I mean, you don't want to talk about the secondary for Baltimore because, we got our guy Nate Wiggins. But what do you like to see out of this Baltimore secondary today?
Yeah, honestly, it's been pretty consistent with their performance the whole year, and I've been honestly disappointed. Like going into the season, the thought was that the secondary would be the strong point of the Ravens defense. They drafted a corner in the first round. They drafted a corner in the 4th round. And to go along with it, they already had a pretty competent duo of Brandon Stevens and Marlon Humphrey. Again, even though only 20 points were allowed, I thought the Commanders, Terry and even Noah Brown and Diami Brown and Zach Ertz, honestly, had some opportunities up the middle and working downfield. So I gotta say, it may sound too harsh, but I'm still disappointed. I think this defense has to play better. But obviously, we have the youngest defensive coordinator in the NFL, so there's going to be growing pains. But still, I was honestly not impressed with the way the secondary played today. But I mean, to be fair, that touchdown to Terry was perfect coverage, but it was just perfect offense. I don't even know what to call it. It was just a beautiful catch by Terry. But honestly, I'm going to go and say I'm still disappointed with the performance of that group so far.
Yeah, at the end of the day, Jane Daniels still threw for 269 yards. Let me check, but I believe that's his second most in his career so far for a game. 200? That is the most, actually. The most passing yards he's had in a game so far this season. So, overall, again, guys like Zach Ertz, Noah Brown, Terry even, they were getting open across the middle of the field, especially towards the end of that game in the 4th quarter. But again, 23 points only for this Washington team. I want to talk about the play calling from Cliff Kingsbury a little bit because it was not like what we've seen from the last few weeks, especially in the red zone. I was kind of confused on what some of these plays were. What was going through your head when you saw that quarterback run? Even a guy like Tony Romo called it out from the up in the broadcast booth.
I was going to say the Commanders were already at a disadvantage without Brian Robinson. So to go ahead and call a QB run, first they tried it with Eckler, I think, and then they tried it with Daniels. I felt pretty confident the whole way that they weren't going to score with the run game in the red zone. And the Ravens defense has been good in the run game all year. So I was very surprised, especially in a critical point in the game where you needed to score. That's one still I don't understand, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm also a little bit confused. Now, I've mentioned it, and you know it too, the early season Cliff Kingsbury's success as a play caller. We saw it in Arizona. We saw it in Arizona with Kyler. But then in the second half, or not even the second half of the season, just around week 6, week 7, things start to fall off the rails a little bit. And now today, again, Washington, they threw for over 250 yards. They had over 300 yards of total offense. Like, overall, it was a successful day for Washington. But there were a few plays, which, I mean, Cliff has pretty much called perfect games the last couple of weeks. There were a few plays today that I am a little bit concerned about. Just the thought process that's going on in his head. Some of them didn't really matter that much because at the end of the day, on that same drive, you got the quarterback power and whatever. You end up scoring a touchdown still. It was a lot more stressful for guys like me, but they ended up still scoring. But there's just some little things right now that are starting to show up a little bit on the field.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I've heard just how much Cliff Kingsbury calls so many screens, but today I saw in the first quarter a tweet that they were on pace for 15 screens in the first half, and I thought it was a joke. But I've never really seen someone call. I guess he just loves them that much. But I guess they work kind of, but I don't know. I just thought some of the play calling decisions might have worked in the previous weeks, but I thought the Ravens personnel groupings were favored in a lot of the matchups. Like Kyle Hamilton and the Ravens defense usually does pretty well against the screens. I think Kyle Hamilton is one of the better players downhill. And then also just the QB run. Like I said, the D-line has been very good in the red zone and against the run the whole year. So it was more of just the decisions against the Ravens players really that I was more confused about.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. Yeah, overall, this offense, it was mostly successful today. You can't really complain that much about it. The things with Cliff Kingsbury's play calling, I mean, there were a few instances that were a little questionable, but beyond that, it was pretty good throughout. Like 23 points still is fine. You're going up against a lot better of a defense than what you were going up against the last couple of weeks. So overall, this Washington offense is fine. Jane Daniels, my final thought about him is Commanders fans got to be excited about it because a performance like this,
100%.
A performance like this, still, I think can still win Rookie of the Week. You know, I mean, Caleb did put up 4 touchdowns.
Caleb was pretty good.
Yeah, Caleb was pretty good today.
I knew after that first touchdown pass in the red zone where he looked the other way and made the corner bit and threw that perfect ball over Marcus Williams to Terry. It was going to be. He was feeling it, so he's definitely impressive.
Yeah, Caleb's still, his performance I think still overtops Jane's today, but man, the four-time Rookie of the Week, Jane Daniels, on pace right now to still be the offensive Rookie of the Year, I would say. So, any final thoughts on before we switch? To the other side of the ball?
Yeah, I think that pretty much covered it. Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on to the other side, Baltimore's offense against the Commanders' defense, because this is where things kind of went off the rails for Washington, especially in that second half. Yeah. I'll start with Lamar, 20-26, 323 with a touchdown. He had the pick to Mike Sanders still at the beginning of the game on the opening drive. He only took 2 sacks and 114.7 passer rating. Your initial thoughts on the Ravens offense today?
Yeah, I thought the Ravens offense was pretty good for the most part. It started off pretty rough, though. There was a weird confusion with Tyler Linderbaum in the snap. I've never seen that before. So I thought it was going to be one of those, classic Ravens games where they're shooting themselves in the foot. And then the Andrews, I'm still confused about that play. I don't know if he just flat out dropped it or what, but it was a rough start, but they really put it together as the game went on. The receivers were great today. I think Flowers was over 100 in almost the first half. Bateman had, I think, 71. Andrews was contributing. Likely was contributing. It was a full effort by the passing game. Aguilar was getting involved. And Lamar has looked so impressive across the middle of the field as a passer. And, yeah, it was a pretty successful game. They had one drive where they settled in the red zone and didn't really use Henry, and they I think eventually realized, we just got to punch it in with Henry, and he ended up getting 2 touchdowns. So it was a pretty good game, but I expected the offense and was hoping the offense was dominant as they were today. I think they were 3rd in EPA going into the game, and I think they'll continue to be top 3 after today's game.
Yeah, it was again, very good performance from Todd Monken and Lamar. Lamar goes for over 300 yards passing, even if you count in the 2 sacks. Derrick Henry and the rushing attack, already mentioned it, but 176 on the ground with 2 touchdowns. A guy like Zay Flowers, 9 catches for 132 for him. I think he had almost all of that in the first half against Washington. Could not stop him in the first half, and then the second half just couldn't stop Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
So, it was for Washington's defense, a guy that I want to point out, I think is definitely Benjamin St-Juste. I was looking at the live PFF tracker stats things, and I think he had 6 catches allowed.
Yeah.
It was either 5 or 6 catches allowed.
I was just going to say, the broadcast mentioned they were college teammates, so before the game, so I thought that would be an interesting matchup, but it was pretty one lopsided throughout the game.
it was pretty bad for Bateman and for Flowers too, both from plus a guy like Likely as well. I mean, they were all eaten up on Benjamin St. Juste. There was one drive when St. Juste, I think, gave up every single catch. Plus, he had 2 penalties on himself as well.
Yeah.
It was bad.
One thing I was just going to mention is in preparation for the Commanders matchup, I was kind of watching the Commanders and seeing what they do and how they defend. And I noticed that they're kind of slow on the outside. And I put out a tweet saying, I think this could be a week where Justice Hill, Lamar, Henry, or Zay can really work on the outside. And the Ravens started off the game with so many screens and it was really effective. So that's definitely a point of interest on the Commanders defense. I think they really did a good job of attacking today.
Yeah, I would say please give me Siobhan Revelle, Siobhan Revelle with the 24th overall pick next year. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
So I love him out of ECU. So Washington definitely needs to focus on the secondary. Definitely needs to focus on the secondary in the draft this upcoming off season. So
yeah, one promising thing I heard Johnny Newton finally called on the broadcast. I think he had a TFL, or maybe I don't know if it was charted as a TFL, but it was pretty close. So that was good to see him. I don't know how good he's been, but that was the first time I had heard his name called. So
yeah, he's kind of been ramping up after his second broken foot within the last year. So he didn't really play in like week 1.
Wow.
Kind of brought back in week 2, week 3. They've kind of ramped him up a little bit.
Yeah,
kind of seems like he's eventually going to be replacing either Allen or Payne at some point, maybe whether it be this season or this off season. But no, I mean he's been getting better. He had a rough week last week. I'll have to watch the tape back to see what he actually did this week. But I did see that one tackle. It was like right at the line of scrimmage. So overall, I mean like Newton's shown flashes, so I've been impressed by him so far.
Yeah, I was gonna say another person I was impressed with, even though he had some balls caught on him, was Mikey Sainristil, who I was a big fan of in the draft. I just still think, I know he's been okay, but I still think he's just so much better fit for the nickel. But obviously the Commanders just don't have the players, and they got to put the best 5 DBs they can. But I think if they can get another DB and they can kind of put him back to where he belongs, I think he'll be even better than he is now.
Yeah, with Sainristil, I think, like you mentioned, he's definitely better in the nickel, and we were just playing him on the outside because he's our best cornerback on the team right now. If Forbes is going to be inactive, you can't bench everybody. You can't bench everybody, right? So St. Juste is still letting up a lot of stuff on the outside still.
Unfortunately.
Igbenogany struggled. Michael Davis, I don't even know if I saw a lot of him today, but it's really just been a rotation of those 4 guys. We did see a lot of Percy Butler today, the former 4th round pick, which with Forbes out, I guess you play him a little bit, but this secondary is just garbage.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad.
I'm hoping for your sake it'll be a different secondary next year.
Yeah. Me too. I think we go secondary every single pick in this draft. That's just me though, because
that's what it looks like.
Yeah, that's what. We just need to hit on like 2. We can't, like, even if we hit on 1, like someone's still gonna be out there. So we hit on 2 guys, either sign someone in free agency or draft someone, or maybe do both, because it's bad.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate. Yeah, but yeah. Any other thoughts on Baltimore's offense against this weak Washington secondary or team?
Yeah, I just kind of continuing. I thought everyone played pretty well. The line was good for the most part. Dorrance Armstrong is a player that's impressed me a lot. I think he got hurt. I'm not sure he did. How severe it is, but I'm hoping it's not. And then Dante Fowler was pretty good against the Ravens offensive line today too. His name kept coming up in the broadcast a lot. Yeah, pretty much for the most part, traditional Ravens game, work in the pass as the run starts to fade away, and complement both of them.
Yeah, that's a good point you brought up. The injuries for Washington today did start to rack up, especially on the defensive line. Dorrance Armstrong injured, out for the game. Jonathan Allen injured, out for the game. Javonte Jean-Baptiste injured, out for the game. So all 3 of those guys.
I saw that.
Yeah, all 3 of those guys don't know the status of them. Again, this being posted on Monday morning, so there'll probably be more information out on the status of those 3 guys. But that's still pretty bad. That's bad, especially when I mean, you're making Jamin Davis inactive, which is smart because he doesn't defend the run, and I mean, Baltimore's going to run the ball right down his throat. So, but beyond that, like, it seems just to be a lack of bodies. You're going to need someone else to step up eventually. So, overall, just sacking Lamar 2 times. A couple other things I'll take away. Lamar, he ran 11 times, but only for 40 yards. So will say I think Washington did a good job making sure he like stayed in the pocket.
Yeah.
I think there was one big rush that he had, but beyond that,
I was gonna say honestly that 11 for 40 sounds more than it's kind of misleading because that big chunk play he had. But honestly, they did a great job, I thought, of limiting him and keeping him inside the pocket. And there were a lot of like 1-yard dives he had to resort to because they did such a good job limiting him outside. And that's when Lamar's most dangerous. So they definitely made that, I bet, a big focal point of the game plan.
Yeah, I agree. So there's that, and then also, I want to ask you, what were your thoughts on Roger Rosengarten?
Yeah, I've been very impressed with Roger. They've kind of eased him in as the season went on. He didn't start against Kansas City. His first start was against Buffalo in prime time, and he was very good. And then he was really good again in Cincinnati. Today, though, like you mentioned, a couple penalties, but overall, I've been impressed. Second-round pick, starting immediately, and he's been impressive. So it's definitely been, I think, a net positive so far. But today was a little bit of a step back in his performance throughout 3 games. But then again, he's still a rookie, so it's kind of expected for him.
Yeah. Overall, though, I would say pretty good. Yeah, I mean, like, it was just like you said, it was a typical Ravens game. He ran for almost 200 yards. Lamar passed for over 300. Like, it was, I don't know how you really stop this team. This is a Super Bowl contender team. Might start at 0-2, but 4 straight wins for Baltimore. And on pace to make a deep run in the playoffs. Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts on the game overall?
I'm trying to think. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention: the kicker, Austin Seibert. He's money.
Yeah.
They finally have a kicker. Where did he even come from?
He was a free agency. He was our 5th kicker this season on the roster this season. So our 5th kicker. It's good that you mentioned him because I want to actually talk about him. Seibert, 3 of 4 for field goals, longest being a 55-yarder, made both of his extra points. Now, the one field goal he missed, which is the first one he missed this season, was a blocked kick, I believe, right? It was blocked. So technically he's still perfect. So, I mean, technically he's still perfect on the year through he came in week 2. He knocked down 4 field goals in week 2. Sorry, not 4. He knocked down 7 field goals in week 2. And then that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I believe he's 12 of 12 or 15 of 16. 15 of 16 so far, which is solid. Yeah. The one you got blocked. His kicks, though, are like a roller coaster. It's like a knuckleball sometimes. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy what he does.
Yeah, and I know the other specialists, I think Trust Wade, the punter, has a good reputation, but he was good today too. So both specialists kind of coming good, easing their way in this season.
Yeah, I was impressed by both of them. I was tweeting that Seibert's like a franchise kicker now because this is the best kicking performance I've seen all year. Because no longer have to watch Ramiz Ahmed or
I agree.
Cade York. Like it was bad at times. It was bad, but yeah.
And I'm hoping on the Ravens end, Tucker is finally beating the washed allegations. I'm hoping he's good. He's been good the past 2 weeks.
Yeah. He's been good. And I mean, the washed allegations at the beginning of the season were definitely. I think they're definitely not someone like he wasn't knocking down like his regular 50.
He was not knocking down anything.
Yeah. It was bad.
Nothing.
It was bad. But no. Beyond that, it's a 30-23 loss. Both teams are now 4-2 on the year. Washington goes on to play Carolina next week. Should be a win for them before they play Chicago the week after that.
That'll be a good game.
Ravens got Tampa Bay.
Tampa next week, Monday night. Yep, should be a good game. I don't know what to expect from the Bucs. I think they're kind of think they're kind of bipolar, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, they put up 50 today, right? I think.
Yeah, they put up 50 and then they lose to the Broncos.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. At Tampa Bay and then at Cleveland for Baltimore in the next 2 weeks. So
yeah,
that'll do it. Where can people find your stuff? And yeah,
they can find me just _ William Herman on Twitter. All my work is linked through there.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks again for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. Baltimore now 4-2, Washington now 4-2. That'll do it for this week's episode of Keeping With the Commanders. See you guys next one.